Hey, good evening and welcome to our last meeting of August. Let's say fall is near and it's hot, so hopefully we'll get to cooler weather soon. Invocation tonight will be led by myself, and respect to the flag will be given by Councilman Kyle Newton. Please rise. Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the opportunity as council members and policymakers to represent your people, and our city. We ask always that you protect the members of our team as they go about their day-to-day operations of providing services to the city. In these difficult times, we ask that you, through your clarity, make us very mindful of just doing today's work well and worrying a little bit less about tomorrow. We follow the golden rule as close as we can come to in regards to how we treat people on a daily basis, and develop always and keep confidence and courage as we move through our daily lives. And we ask all of these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor, I have a comment before you.
Ms. McEwen.
Mayor, thank you. Newly appointed Captain Shannon DeVillay is expected to be recognized upon council. However, he was called to duty just a little while ago, just moments ago. He was paged and had to respond to a law enforcement activity. So therefore, we'll postpone that recognition to another council meeting and move from there.
Sounds good. And we'll move on to the approval of the August 14th minutes that were distributed. And are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? Not hearing any, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
First by Mr. Newton, second by Dr. Thompson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes of August 14th passed unanimously. We have two items of old business, and the first item is request second reading of ordinance 23-15, amending Article 5 of Chapter 78 of the Anderson City Code by adding Section 78-209 regarding the wastewater industrial pretreatment fees. Ms. McEwen.
Okay, thank you. We've talked about this at length. We've had a work session, public hearing, and then it's upon you on second reading. I'll just go ahead and turn it over to engineer and Electric City Utilities Director Scott Banks to go over the details. Mr. Banks.
Good evening. As Mr. McEwen said, this is the second reading of the ordinance, and our recommendation is for increasing our current surcharge fees on the constituents that we monitor from industries coming to us. When they go over the minimum amounts, we've been charging 25 cents per pound, and we're recommending 30 cents per pound on those particular parameters, as well as, which is mainly just to cover our costs. We've not raised these fees in quite some time, but as you're well aware, our chemicals and labor costs have increased, and as well as electricity too. Likewise, there are two other pieces in this. One is a hauler fee for when we're accepting some of these wastes that are not coming through our pipeline, as well as an administration fee for just carrying out these services and taking care of our industrial customers.
I'll just add, this is not whatsoever a rate increase on residential customers or local commercial customers. This is actually to protect those customers from other wastewater that we receive from industries and other partners that need to transport wastewater to us, thereby passing these fees. Your residential customers and your business customers are not paying for someone else's treatment of industrial waste.
Thank you. And we did have good questions, comments from our previous meeting where we approved it on first reading. But are there any additional comments, questions?
Mayor,
Ms. Roberts? Jeff?
my math tells me it's a 20% increase from 25 cents per pound to 30 cents.
That is correct.
And prior to the meeting, I spoke to Mr. Banks. It's been, in his estimation, 7 or 8 years since we've had a rate increase. And I know for my own business, labor has gone up more than 20%. So has materials and et cetera. Whatever inflation rate is today, I don't know. But I think we can justify this, and therefore I move that we amend our rates to what is presented here.
I have a first by Mr. Jeff Roberts. Second by Mr. Lockridge. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously on the second and final reading.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our second item, old business, is request second reading of ordinance 23-16, authorizing the execution of an easement to Duke Energy's Carolina LLC on city property at 301 South Murray Avenue. Mr. McEwen.
Okay, your Assistant City Manager, Andrew Strickland, coordinated with Duke Energy for this amenity to be added to public parking spaces. This easement allows Duke Energy to put in the infrastructure necessary to provide a Class 1 charger, which is the fastest charger available in technology for EV vehicles. Therefore, this is on second reading. I know we talked a lot about it last time. Again, these are public spaces, public parking spaces in a city parking lot as an amenity to be added to help with the charging of EV vehicles for travelers and those that live here and do business as well.
Thank you. Any questions or additional comments from the previous item on our agenda?
Mayor, I'll just make this comment. Everything that we discussed about this, I think, is exciting. It's attractive for Anderson. It's a very good partnership between us and Duke Energy. So I'll go ahead and make the motion that we go ahead and we approve this on second reading.
Thank you. I have a first by Mr. Martinez.
Second.
Second by Mr. Newton. Any further discussion? I would say that I have gotten, just like y'all have, comments from people over the last several years with electric vehicles picking up that they were looking for something that could give that. How long does it take to charge? Did we say that publicly?
From bone dry battery to full charge, about 30 minutes.
About 30 minutes. So
In this new
in this new one, yes, 30 minutes as opposed to overnight sometimes. But anyway, we had a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. We'll move right along into new business. And our first item of new business is request consideration of an ordinance authorizing the execution of a intergovernmental agreement with the County of Anderson and the necessary documents to convey title to 7.5 acre tract of land formerly used by the Anderson County Animal Shelter. Mr. Kuhn.
Thank you. I yield to City Attorney Frankie McLean.
Okay. This deals with a piece of property, of 7.5 acres that the city deeded the county back in 1975 to use as an animal shelter. There's a reversion clause in it. The county's been using it as an animal shelter since then, until I think it burned a little while back. The county, in addition to that, bought a little piece of property connected to it. Part of it has a cell tower on it. But anyway, we've been approached by that person and some other people that might be interested in buying it. It would require both entities to sign the deeds. And we basically proposed we just do that and divide the proceeds equally. And I think the county is in agreement with that, and I would recommend that we do that. That would be, I think, in best interest of the city and the county to do. So I'm asking that we pass an ordinance to authorize the execution of the agreement, and subsequently do a sale once we agree upon a price.
Thank you, sir. Any questions or additional comments from our last briefing? Mr. Stewart?
Mr. McLean, so what you're asking here for, just make sure I understand, is that both parties is going to sign a deed over to who?
The successful bidder.
To whoever.
The county has agreed to process we still have to go through the procurement process of putting it out for bids.
Who's doing that procurement process?
The county will do that. We're going to share in the cost of that. And once we get a successful bidder, we'll probably come back to you make sure we got the okay on the price. Then and I'm not sure what all deeds will need to be signed, but we will just do the necessary paperwork to get the title, to convey good title to it.
Yeah, that's why I was wondering, since we're conveying over our interest, over to our deed, or we're going to be, is it going to come back to us to see what the 3 bids are? Because who knows?
We're not
maybe
gonna
something
convey it.
we may not want to accept.
We're not going to sign anything till we know what the price is.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that price will come back to us to vote on.
Yeah.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
For your agreement, yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the consideration of this ordinance authorizing this.
We have first by Mr. Horvan,
Second.
second by Mr. Lockridge. Any further comments, questions?
You know when the county's going to be executing theirs, when it's going before their.
I don't know, that we were going to do it first. And, of course, they take 3 readings. This process may take a while.
Okay.
But I have sent it to my counterpart in the county. They indicated he was in agreement with it. So I
Any
assume
other
that they would do it.
questions, comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously on the first read. The last item of new business is request consideration of an ordinance to establish new seat boundaries. Mr. McEwen?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Your staff coordinated with the SC, Department of Revenue and Fiscal Affairs Mapping and Operations Division in late 2022 to let them know that the council was interested in moving forward with the redistricting process and using state staff to do so to be in compliance with the 1965 Voters' Rights Act and other such law contexts. Through that process, the council met January the 23rd, or January 23rd, 2023, for a council work session. They met again February 27th, 2023, for a council work session, March 27th, 2023, for a council work session, and then again tonight, August 28th, 2023, 5 o'clock prior to the meeting for a work session. Staff from the Department of Revenue and Fiscal Affairs that was handling developing the drafts for consideration by the City Council for redistricting were available virtually during the work session to answer specific questions related to the maps and corresponding statistics. There's been 4 drafts that have been prepared so far with the latest and then the overview in front of you and your packet provided. With that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mayor, for council discussion.
Thank you. And we did have discussion during the work session, but I know that there is more discussion to be heard, so I will open it up for discussion. Mr. Stewart?
First of all, I'd just like to, start off by saying, thank you to Adam and Catherine, for all the hard work that they've done to provide us with these drafts. And I know, especially myself, these lines are tough to swallow. But I can assure all the citizens out there that whoever winds up being your council member, that you know, you'll get just as equal great service as you've always got over the years, because we're here to serve all the citizens in Anderson. And with that being said, Mr. Mayor, I have, you know, one other, I know talking with Adam, you know, we're at 1.3% deviation, and he said 100 people kind of equates to 0.5% of deviation, and the benchmark is you want to stay below 5% deviation. And in order to maintain a community, I have one recommendation that I would like for them to take a look at, just to see how that would, I think it would be less than 0.5% deviation, but like to have them take a stab at it one more time, and if it's okay with city council, you know, to have a look at. This is the Hudgens, Bailey, Farmer Street area, which is directly behind Cleo Bailey Elementary School. A big portion of the yard, the area is the scrap yard off of Gossett Street, which is, there's no residents, and the rest of it's swamp land. And, I have this, if it's all right, like to present it to the city manager to have him take a look at it and see what it would come back. Does that suit council? If I would like to. and
Well, let's continue, let's
yeah.
continue the discussion.
Yeah, Dr. Thompson and I, we spoke about it, and I'll, you know, defer to her.
We'll continue the discussion.
Yeah, I would like to have the same thing. I agree with Tony, to have them to look at this. So that's not a motion, or what is it?
Well, we're just in the
Discussion.
discussion part of
Okay.
this, so,
I'll go along with this.
is there any comments, any other questions, comments? Mr. Roberts, Jeff?
Well, quite honestly, I'm okay with the changes presented, and I would encourage my fellow council people to embrace the change. Nothing stays the same. Embrace it. Get to know these people. And Councilman Stewart is right. Whoever these constituents get moved to, they're going to get fine representation. There's no doubt about that. Get to know them. When I ran the first time, I had to go into areas I didn't know people, but I got to know them. I got elected, and now I represent them, and that's going to change. If one thing's constant, it's change.
That's for sure.
Now, I would say this, I would move that we accept the boundaries as they're drawn. This is a motion. And in the interim, before second reading, if somebody wants to have a second look at Tony's request, fine. But I move now that we accept these boundaries as they're drawn.
Which boundaries?
As they are presented in draft form.
So that's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I thought we were still in discussion, but I thought we had a motion a while ago about
Who?
the check. I thought that's what Dr. Thompson was motioning.
To look into what you were asking
Yeah.
to do. I don't think it would hurt to do that.
She didn't make a motion.
It wasn't a motion, she said just to look at what you were
Oh, I
saying.
thought
to
you
look
said we were
at.
still, I thought she had asked, was it a motion, and then you said we're still in discussion.
Which I said, yeah, but I can't prevent when somebody makes a motion, even during discussion.
Okay, I thought it was implied, okay.
No, I mean, I don't think I've ever
Well,
stopped.
Can
I mean-
say something?
Go ahead. Well, let's do this.
Mr. Roberts.
We did have a first.
I'll second the motion.
Mr. Newton, second. Discussion.
If you look on the page where it talks about 4 and 3, just statistics. If you look where it talks about percentages, and it talks about District 3 and District 4, District 4 and District 5, you'll notice that the percentages of minorities are much closer in draft 3 than they are on draft 4. And that's, in my opinion, a fair situation if we're going to adopt a draft.
So we, first and second, discussion. Any further discussion? Ms.
Okay.
Stewart?
Well, I don't think it's about, you know, my request to have, you know, to take a look at, you know, which, again, from my understanding is that as long as, you know, what the state or the federal government looks at is under the 5% deviation, and we're at 1.3 right now. We have some council districts that have, you know, more voters than others already, in districts 2 and 3, and so it's not about the percentage of African Americans in that district. That's not what we're looking at, or minorities. What I'm trying to do is keep a community intact, and one of the things that they've asked for and they was tasked with is to try to respect to existing districts and community of interest. And this is a community of interest which they strongly recommended that before you take any action that you have citizen input. And today, as of today, we still have not had any citizen input, nor have none of our citizens even seen this to have an opportunity for input. So that's why I'm a little bit hesitant about moving forward right now, because it also says that, redistricting can take place at any time. You know, even if we, said, hey, let's get some input, let's take a look at it before we make a motion to pass, give it 30 days, or give it to the next council meeting to come back, you're still gonna be 8 months away from our election, which is plenty enough time, to get to know who your new voters may be. I think when we first started out, we said we'd like to have this process done by the end of October. And, and so why rush it today? And let's, see if it comes back 2 more weeks from now with another stab. And if it works out, that's great. If it don't, that's great. We'll move forward with the plan. But, why push it today?
Could we talk about the public process, Mr. McCool?
Yes, so we will have a public hearing at the next meeting. Of course, all the work sessions I've mentioned since early 2023 have been available, and proper notice was provided to the public to attend. So that's from early 2023 until we're almost in the fourth quarter or end of third quarter of 2023. Also, if there was any, again, this is a council-driven process, so if there was any of this information has been available since then to all council members, if they wanted to go out and share that with any community or any citizens, they had the opportunity to do so. But again, we will have if it was passed on first reading, we will have another public hearing prior to our second reading, and that would add into the 5th meeting that we've had that's been public, and public notice has been provided for opportunity of discussion or any comments that we could have received from the citizens.
Thank you. So, point of clarification as far as the motion having a first and a second on the floor, to Mr. Jeff Roberts' suggestion, as the Revenue Fiscal Affairs looks at Mr. Stewart's drawing, what and council wants to act on 5.1. Do we, if this motion goes forward, if it goes forward, and we'll take a vote in a second, does it start the first and second reading over?
No, you could still tweak it between, just as like the budget ordinance, you can still tweak it, right? So you passed first reading of a draft of the boundaries here. If you say draft 4, that was the motion. And then we have a draft 5 come by, a draft 5 produce, that would be presented as well to council. And if they wanted to amend that to adopt draft 5, they could do that prior to second reading.
Thank you. Mr. Stewart?
Just a quick question. I'd just like to ask, again, we're only talking about 2 weeks here for a process that's going to affect a community for many years to come. So
we'll get a chance to look at it again in 2 weeks.
And we can have another work session and a public hearing as well.
And I understand that, we try, we say we notify the public, we've done all of our due diligence, and, you advertise and you put it on the computer and the website, but the fact of the matter is a lot of our citizens don't have access to that. And, it is, just like we do when we go out to, build a city and to do all of our recreation plans. We bring our plans to the community. And there's nothing wrong with the city putting a caravan together, bringing their plans for our redistricting to the community, because I think just like any other process that we go through, it affects the city of Anderson for many years to come, and this redistricting is going to affect the city of Anderson for many years to come.
I agree.
Mr. Mayor?
Ms. Harvin, then Ms. Lockridge.
Real quick, and you might be able to answer this, it might be a council driven, what is the main, because Mr. Lockridge asked about it, number 3 to number 4. What did we change in that?
Well, one of the things, and let me glance at it real quick, but there was a request by Mr. Stewart that we look to see if Main Street could be a boundary. McDuffie Street, I believe, was shifted from version 3 to version 4.
Also,
which is a line that, you want a good street line if you can. So McDuffie Street, they were able to address that and move it to McDuffie Street, but couldn't make it to Main Street because of the constraints of the statistics and the census blocks. So there were a couple other minor changes. Mr. Stewart, I heard you mentioned just now, comment.
I was just saying, the other thing, Mr. Harvin, was it split D.B. Walker Park down the middle. Half of D.B. Walker Park would be going into Dr. Thompson area and half of it would stay in Ward 4. So that was one of the main things between version 3 and 4.
So they were able to tweak it a little bit, and if I understand, Mr. Mayor, so the motion is to approve map 4 with the idea of a suggestion from Mr. Stewart and Dr. Thompson to make another adjustment to it, and if it still meets the criteria, then we will have an opportunity to adopt that at the second reading. Is that correct?
That is the motion.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Lockridge.
My opinion is that we should not rush anything, like Mr. Stewart says. This is a very, very important thing. And like Mr. Stewart said, there are communities. There is competition between the east side and the west side, and everybody knows that. And so it's one of those things that I don't see any reason why we couldn't wait another week or two. And also it gives us an opportunity, and I apologize to our city manager because I didn't understand that we could go ahead and announce this to our community, but I will do so now. But one of the things that I feel like we need to do is just it's important to live life with enthusiasm, but not to live life without patience. And we need to think about being patient when we make judgments rather than always rushing to judgment. So that's my opinion.
Dr. Thompson.
I thoroughly agree with Mr. Stewart and Mr. Lockridge. As far as I was going out to the community to talk about redrawing, we didn't know the sales of it. We didn't understand the enough ourselves. We said this to the community.
Dr. Thompson, would you talking to your mom?
Okay. We didn't, at least I didn't understand clearly enough to talk about the redrawing. We knew it was going to be redrawn, but as far as what we're talking about here tonight, lines and so forth, opportunities, we didn't know enough to explain to the community. Now, I think they would be interested if most folks don't even know what we're talking about. They don't know we're drawing what? What? Talking about lines? Where back going to be? So, as Mr. Lockridge just said, we don't need to rush to judgment. However our vote comes out, I think most of us are not so far apart from what we're talking about to say, well, I think it should go this way or that way. It won't hurt us to wait a little while, so that we'll all be clearer and closer to what we're voting on and say, let's just vote on it. That's my opinion.
I guess the only thing I'll add to that is I thoroughly agree with a lot of what we're saying. I do think that this is a first reading with another reading that would be coming in. We're taking into consideration some additional boundaries. I think as leaders, it is prudent that we as beneficiaries of our territories to be mindful of communities, but, we also have to have some faith as well in understanding that some of these lines are going to fall in certain areas. And as we mentioned earlier, we know they're in good hands regardless, and nothing stops us from going across the street, whether they're our constituent or not, to serve them and be good stewards of the city and for our other constituents. So I think that the motion that was on the floor by Councilman Roberts takes into consideration us being considerate of boundaries. I know we named specifically Councilman Stewart's request, but if we are taking public input, I mean, there's an opportunity for us to come back and add additional opinion then. So it's just my thoughts.
Thank you.
I mean, Mr. Mayor,
Harvey.
I mean, if I could
Stewart.
add, we had version 1. If you took version 1 and shared it with the community, it's a long way. There's been some not significant, but changes from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, and I think there was 4.1 or 3.1, and there were several changes. So, I can certainly, when I've talked to city residents about, the switching and, changing, trying to figure out whose street is, with the major map, which one now is going to change again, and it may change again between now and, the next time. I mean, how many more changes do we want to make?
Well, I think who's helping us agreed to more change, and that's it. And they were pretty clear about that.
Yeah, I mean, they were pretty clear that they may do it one more time, but then they're done.
Again, anything different, Mr. Stewart?
Well, yeah, just, kind of piggybacking on what Councilman Harbin, and also Councilman Martinez was saying. The only thing about passing it on first reading today is that if we pass it on first reading, and then it comes back to second reading, then if there's the debate or discussion, there's no wiggle room there. You're either going to turn it up or turn it down. If you take a look at what the proposed changes is today, and what's being offered up, then bring it back 2 weeks from now, at least we've got some time to talk about it a little bit further, pass it on first reading, and then come back and pass it on second reading again. We're only, talking, 2 weeks. It's not like we're talking 2 months. But again, talking with, I think correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. City Manager, is it Abbott? What's the director's name down there? Abney?
Yeah, Mr. Athy.
Anthony, talking to him today, yes, this department in Columbia, they do this free of charge, I guess, for all the municipalities, but he told me on the phone today when I had emailed him a proposed change, and he said, hey, just like I told your city manager and the mayor, we don't know your area. He said, if it's something that y'all want to get involved a little bit more than what we're doing, he said, we always tell the municipalities to hire a consultant who knows the area better than what we do to come back with that. So those are things.
Let me clarify what he told us. He specifically told us, the mayor, myself, and Mr. McLean, that if we were unhappy with their process, that we could hire a consultant to do so. However, it's their mission statement to do this, and they are charged by the General Assembly to redistrict and provide this service using your state tax dollars to municipalities. And I think they mentioned they've done 80 municipalities so far in 39 counties, and also the General Assembly. So that is who you want to use. I would question a consultant because a consultant can be biased. You're paying them, and they have opinions. And when you're paying somebody, that's a different situation than when you're having a state government that's charged and mandated to do this and can defend against this in the court of law if it were challenged. And that's why we're using them. And again, they're mandated to do this and work with us.
Well, I wasn't advocating a consultant. The only thing I was just trying to make a point with, where expand on Mr. Harbin is that, that, hey, are they not going to do it anymore? I was just letting them know, hey, that's the other alternative that could be out there. But in no way, without shape or form, was I advocating for a consultant. I was just relaying additional information.
Thank you. We have Mr. Levitt. Mr. Roberts.
Thank you. It's obviously it's a sensitive subject, I think, and Mr. Harbin and myself are somewhat excluded from this conversation with regard to our own wards because we're citywide. But that being said, I think 3 of the council members who were impacted the most have made a comment to wanting to have further time and discussion. I believe if we look at the maps right, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but they're impacted probably the most. And they're talking about their constituents that elected them, that put them into a position that they know the community of. I don't see how 2 more weeks is going to hurt us, guys. That's my personal opinion.
Thank you. Again, we have a motion on the floor. We've had discussion. And I will call the vote. And instead of voice vote, I think we'll have just for recording, for our secretary's point of view, just to have a hand vote.
Can we reiterate what the motion is?
Mr. Roberts?
The motion is to accept draft 4 in its presented form and allow between first and second readings your request to go back to the state for their review in time to come back for second reading. And if I understand correctly, in the meantime, did you say we're having another work session and public input?
That's correct.
Another opportunity to talk about it?
So we had, did that clarify the motion?
It clarified the motion, but how can you have input on something that we got possibly 2 plans to get input on? You've got one plan that's got a motion on the floor too, and then you got one that we're asking to go back to look at again. So now we're leaving our constituents with not knowing which way. That's why I was asking for another 2 weeks. Again, you know, that way that you got something to put back to the constituents that this council agrees upon.
Well, actually, I think that's what it helps clarify, that you've gone from at least, you got 4 versions of the map right here. So you're saying version 4 on first reading. So it's making it clear that the council's position is the best so far is version 4. And there might be some minor edits which might, could be amended on adopting the boundaries. So it's actually adding clarity by going from 4 maps and deciding on 1 so far that still could be amended.
Which I think I'm hearing from everybody in regards to the clarity part of looking at the 4.1 and whatever happens that you've asked the body in Columbia to look at again and see if it, number 1, passes muster and we can act on it if it does as a council.
And I'll also state, I mean, the staff in Columbia is also looking for direction. I mean, you know, work session is discussion, but they're also looking for clarity and direction. So far, we're unable to give them a solid direction. Did we dismiss, you know, 1 through 3 maps? Are we going to take 4 and then look at some possible edits there? But it definitely adds clarity to them as well on that.
So,
Can I say something? Go ahead, Mr. Harper.
go ahead. Ms. Harper.
I apologize. Before we vote, I wanted to, something that one of the other council members said. So if we pass this tonight and there are some changes, I can amend it. Somebody can make a motion that we amend the motion. And if we have a work session and we're able to share 4.1 to our constituents, and it comes back and it's something that nobody's comfortable on, we will deny it in second and then come up with a 5th version.
So actually, what we take back is there would be a what they call a 5th version that would be created based on the input that we've heard from the work session, Mr. Stewart's requests, and so then you compare that. If you provide clarity and say, okay, we have map 4, and then map 5 version is going to be produced, and then you can compare the 2 now, not all 5. And say, okay, we can amend the adoption of the seat boundaries as on your agenda to include this element or all the elements from version 5. And you can do that on the second reading. You can also continue the second reading because we're going to have a work session coming up, a public hearing. It would be scheduled for second reading, but it doesn't mean you can't continue the second reading. But at least it's moving forward, and we can tell the elections office as well as moving forward, because they need to receive this in October.
I apologize, Mayor, I just
No, you're
wanted
good.
clarification
Yeah,
on
that was a good point.
exactly, it doesn't just go
But you
away
voted.
and start back at ground zero.
Correct.
That's what I.
Ms. Love?
The question I have is, what in the heck is the rush? Why is it that we have to vote tonight on this and say that this is the... First reason I say, the community hasn't been informed. My community hasn't been. They don't know anything about anything. And I'll bet you that if I ask each one of you, your community doesn't know either.
Absolutely.
Whose fault is
Why,
that?
whose fault? It may be my fault.
Well, I'm not saying.
No, I'll take the blame for it,
They've
because
all
I
been-
didn't understand what he said.
But they've all been public meetings.
But the
right?
thing about it is, they don't know, and it's not fair, whether they know or don't know, that we go ahead and vote yes on this tonight and say, hey, this is wonderful.
And I do-
Because it's not giving the people the opportunity to understand what's going on. The people are why we're doing this.
That
We
is
don't
true.
understand.
We don't understand
We
it,
don't
exactly.
understand.
That is true.
I don't get upset often, but I'm upset now because I am listening to this, and I'm saying it's like government does sometimes. Push it down the throat of the people. And this is not the right way to go.
I agree.
I'll just add this, Councilman Loffridge, I have the utmost respect for you, and I appreciate your passions on what you're saying. And I have zero intent to just streamline or hurry up a process, but it's my opinion that we've done this, in my opinion, 4 times, plus some continued conversation. I understand that perhaps some of us haven't informed all of our citizens, including myself. I've talked to a few about some of these lines, especially on some of the versions as it was changing. I was talking to them about they may be in, they may be out. I guess I only viewed it as if we did approve this motion, that it would keep the conversation moving forward. And although, to Councilman Roberts' point, my district right now, currently in this conversation, is not being discussed. It's 3, 4, and 5 that are in the conversation. But we could easily move one census tract and then 2's moved, then 1's moved. And then I understand, listen, if we can settle in 2 weeks, then 2 weeks is not a hard ask. But I caution us that 2 weeks can turn into a month, can turn into 2 months. And I thought the motion on the floor still gave us an opportunity to amend or to look at certain revisions. So that was the only, that's my only motivation for us to continue to work forward, because I feel like we're talking about as if we haven't done 4 already. That's the only part that I'm trying to emphasize.
But does that motion convey that?
I think the motion gives it an opportunity to build upon it, but that's my interpretation.
Can I make a
Sure.
separate comment? Councilman Martinez, just because, one district may change doesn't mean it's going to change all the districts. It just may mean that my deviation may go up from 1.3, so your district, all the districts could stay intact. It just may be that 3 or 4 or 5 may pick up additional voters, and now going from 1.3 to 1.8 or 2.0 deviation, as long as it's under that 5.0. And I'll be the first to tell you, as far as trying to put something out, I get asked it probably for the last 3 or 4 community meetings, and I've even asked staff here, hey, well, when are we going, I think I did it at the Municipal Association when we went to Greenville. Well, we're working on bringing back the final plan. I said, because we haven't talked about it, in the last couple of months. Well, I don't know what to present to the community because I don't know where we're at, I don't know what plan we're working on, because there's a lot of different plans, and I just don't like taking something unless I'm able to relay something that's true and accurate, and we've had 5 revisions, and I've been very hesitant myself, and if it's my fault, it's my fault, but I don't like presenting a moving piece. It's like a ship going up and down on a rough ocean.
But I think each one of the revisions were based on discussion and looking at different census blocks. Each one, 1 through 4. And I appreciate you, Rick. I appreciate your passion. I do. But we eventually have to, we could talk all night, and we eventually, as a council, have to vote. Okay? Eventually, tonight, somewhere. But we had a first and a second. All those in favor by raising their hands, say aye.
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Opposed? Like sign? 4. So that motion passes 5-4.
That's not a good way to end this situation, Mr. Mayor.
That's the only way you can end a motion.
I understand that.
Not unless it, I mean,
It
and,
shows-
but we have an opportunity next month.
We do.
Shows division, too.
But, I mean, the Mayor Pro Tem just said we do.
We do.
We
And
do
I hope
have an
we all-
opportunity in 2 weeks to continue the discussion, as long as we want to continue the discussion.
That's right.
We could come back and revision 5 might meet everybody's expectation.
It's pretty nice.
But I'm going to say one other thing, Mr. Mayor.
Go right ahead.
The whole thing that we're leaving out, and I'm talking to you folks that are watching TV, probably the 9 or 10 that are, we're leaving out the people.
Well, that, to me, that's part of the problem of our democracy right now, because when you look at the percentage of people who actually participate in the election,
No, I agree with you.
it's awful low. The people who come to our council meetings are awful low. The people, it's just, it is low. And so, I'll let Mr. Stewart have the last word.
Well, I'm just saying, but again, like Councilman Lockridge said, it's the people that's being left out. Now, I would just like, going forward, is that when there's important issues, we as a city, staff, team, one body here, we make sure that we run that caravan. We have shop the block. We go out and get input. We get input for everything else. But for this census data, we have not even did that. We haven't, for this redistricting, we haven't put forth that conservative effort that we've done in every other major development that's going on to get citizen input.
When you say the caravan, what do you mean?
Well,
by
I'm just
that?
saying that we go around to different communities and say, hey, give me your input on shot the block here, on this, what do you want to see here? And we get community, master recreation
I
plan.
thought you meant a bus going to pick people
Nah,
up and
nah,
stuff.
nah.
But anyway, points well taken.
Well, that's what I'm saying, I just hope that we make that conservative effort, because this is going to affect the city for years to come.
I agree. Administrative briefing, Lindley Park up there.
Okay, I'll turn to Assistant City Manager Andrew Strickland for update.
Thank you, Mr. McCune. Mayor, Council, you have in front of you a packet. It looks like this. I passed out packets. I didn't pass out magnifying glasses. Forgive me. There's some close details on there, but really just wanted to convey the current status of Lindley Park project to you. You have 2 of about 45 sheets of a construction set to give you an idea of what is actually happening in Lindley Park. And then you also have some renderings to show you kind of where we are in the design process for the pavilion and restroom area in the park. We are scheduled to have a public drop-in at Lindley Park. I spoke with
Is it going
Councilman
to be at
Walker.
Lindy Park or the rec center?
Did I say Lindley Park?
You said Lindy Park.
I'm sorry, at the rec center, about Lindley Park. Too many words flying around. On Tuesday, September 12th, from 4:30 to 6:30, to provide the same feedback, engagement opportunity that we did last year. If you'll recall, we had a similar drop-in last October, where we solicited comments. And actually, the plans that you have in front of you are the result of incorporating those comments into the design. One of the most exciting elements, I'd say, is, or a couple of the most exciting elements, larger playground. Kids wanted to have a larger playground. But they also wanted to have, members of the community wanted to have better access from the west as well across Park Drive. And you'll see that, or I'm sorry, Club Drive. You'll see that incorporated there with a centerpiece bridge and some good access. And you'll see that in color, better renderings at the drop-in when you come. One of the really cool features we're going to add at this drop-in, we always design parks and playgrounds in the city, but very rarely, if ever, do we ask the kids to pick out their own equipment that they want to play on those playgrounds. We're going to have a little opportunity for kids, so come one, come all. If you got kids, if you know kids, bring them. We're going to have an opportunity to pick out the equipment that they see in this park. It's a very exciting project, and certainly more to come. We are looking right now at construction potentially commencing January, February 2024. So we're on track for that. As you recall, in May, we brought Edifice contractors on board to lead us through the construction manager at risk process, and they've been doing that very, very well. So we're getting closer and closer to bringing this thing to reality.
We do have
I have a
a
question.
question, Mr. Stewart and I, but he's gonna ask it.
Are these the bike racks here in front of the shelters?
No, so what you're looking at is a bathroom facility. That's kind of a privacy screen that hides the door from there will be bike racks placed throughout the park though.
And we are making some renovations to the Malden Street red light that, you know, how it's real bad. Is that-
That's right.
and
That's right.
part of
There'll be
this here?
that's right. There'll be some traffic improvements because that's actually part of the trail that will continue south. So we'll have to rework how that works.
Yeah, that's pretty dangerous.
Ms. Lovett.
At the end of Lindley, I was thinking that there was going to be a semi-rondo there. Is that changed?
A semi.
Rondo.
The peanut?
If you look at the first page, that oval.
Oh, I
peanut
see.
looking
I
thing,
got you.
That's
I
the
got you.
peanut about it.
That's
It's
the
not-
peanut, right.
It's not
Gotcha,
rondo, it's
gotcha,
peanut. So it's yeah.
I was looking at the wrong end.
No comment.
I've done that a few times.
It looks great. It's playing.
I guess the intersection, the hope is to, from a curb point of view, is to slow the traffic.
That's right.
down.
That's right. One of the top pieces of wisdom we heard from the community out there was that traffic just flies too fast. So we'll have some multiple crossings. We're flipping the parking as well, creating some other opportunities. You can't really tell on a 2D plan just how best to handle those crossings. So.
Good. Thank you. Any other comments, questions? I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Can I say one other thing? And then
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Andrew, for all the hard work you've done on this. We appreciate your hard work. We really, there's a lot of things that went into this, so we appreciate everything you've done.
Happy to do it. It's a fun part.
Ms. Stewart?
Well, I know we had a lot of great discussion here tonight, but as always, you know, we're all friends on this council. Just because we express our opinions on things and are passionate don't mean that we don't work together as a team. So, you know, we'll walk out here still being a team, and we'll come back the next council meeting still being a team.
Great.
So again, thank you for all the great discussion.
And Mayor, let me tell a story real quick that you guys may not know of. Back on August 11th, my place of employment, South State Bank, was robbed. And thankfully to our city law enforcement, they acted and responded accordingly and kept our bank safe. Nobody was harmed. On the 17th, the gentleman was apprehended and placed behind bars for the time being. But the story is really to tell you what happened on August 23rd. So the bank had contracted with the city to get some additional security inside the bank. And what these officers do is they're present in the lobby, providing some extra security for these tellers that have experienced something that can just kind of shake their faith in coming back into work every day and feeling comfortable. But Lieutenant Cornelius Pickens came in on the 23rd, and he did something a little bit different. Instead of just coming in and sitting down or kind of patrolling the lobby, he checked in with all the tellers and he spoke to them. He asked them how they were doing, and he even went as far as going outside. There was a food truck that was parked, and on his own dime, he went out there and purchased some food and brought it back in there just to break bread and give some opportunity outside of security to let them know that he was there for them to actually know who they are and to give them, you know, a little extra safety that day. And that meant a whole lot to me, and I think it speaks a lot about just law enforcement and the relationships they're trying to build. And for somebody like myself that works in an industry that's very easy to forget that bad things can happen, I just really appreciate what Lieutenant Pickens did that day. It means a lot for me, and I hope the city of Anderson is proud to have a gentleman like that on our law enforcement team.
And the city of Anderson is very lucky to have a lot of folks like that.
That's right.
I
Absolutely.
agree. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Well, first by Mr. Newton, second by the Mayor Pro Tem. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? We stand adjourned.
That's the way corn is every day. I've been knowing it for years.
He's a good dude.